Michael Dan to just give us a few words. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Angelo, and thank you for being here. It's actually our 4th edition of Aero South Africa, and we're very, very happy the way that this show has developed and grown, in particular in the spread across South Africa and Southern Africa. I looked at the pre-registration numbers yesterday, which made me very happy. Zinchla is smiling there in the back. You quite rightly should smile, because the pre-registration numbers for this event have looked very, very good, not only in terms of absolute numbers, but also in terms of the spread across South Africa. We're covering the entire country, the spread across Namibia, Mozambique, surrounding countries. We have registrations from Nigeria, we have registrations from many other African countries. And this was always our ambition, that we create an event for the general aviation sector in South Africa and Southern Africa, and eventually an event that has all African attendees. Now in the 4th edition, we see that step by step every year we're getting one step closer, and of course that makes us very happy. And when you look around, you see all these wonderful aircraft, some of them brand new models, first time to see here in South Africa. And then out of the blue, Professor Angelo Dube comes along and says, can I hold a General Aviation Indaba? And obviously that's wonderful, because it adds to the flair of the show, it adds to the content and the knowledge exchange that we want to offer here. So thank you for that. And without further ado, I would like to wish you a very good afternoon, and thank you very much for putting this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And we move right along to the portion on the welcome address to be offered by our Manager of Strategic Projects within the College of Law at the University of South Africa, Dr. Lindelwa Mhlongo. Please ascend to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, that's better. Oh, well, I guess that was me, because I didn't use the mic. So as Prof indicated, I am Lindelwa Mhlongo from UNISA College of Law. And at UNISA, we usually follow protocol. So allow me to first acknowledge the Vice-Chancellor of the University, Professor Puleng Nkambula, and all her Vice Principal. I would also like to acknowledge our Executive Dean, Professor Budeli Nemakonde. I would also like to acknowledge our Deputy Executive Dean, Professor Olause John Kole. I would also like, although he has already introduced himself, to acknowledge our Director of the School of Law, who also wears another hat as the Flying Jurist, Professor Angelo Dube. And as they've indicated, it is through him that we are having this platform today, and thank you, Prof. I would also like to acknowledge and thank our other partner, Aero South Africa Managing Director Michael Dan, and your colleagues Neil Louise Olkes, and Ms. Zinhle. You guys have been wonderful, and we enjoyed working with you planning this event. I would also like to acknowledge and thank our panelists who have decided to set aside their busy schedules to be with us today. And also, of course, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you all to the 2024 General Aviation Indaba. So this year, I don't know if some of you know, last year, many people were seeing billboards, even in airports, where UNISA was celebrating 150 years. And this year, we are celebrating 151 years as a comprehensive open distance e-learning institution, and this means that we are older than all universities in South Africa, and we are also older than most aviation training organization or flying school. This makes our role in the higher education sector a critical one, not only for South Africa, but also for the general aviation industry. This is why we decided to be active in Aero South Africa initiatives. So we started to be active as an institution last year. We had a stall, and this year we decided to not only have a stall, but to also put this event together, and we really appreciate you showing support because this is very fast. So we're hoping to see you next year when we host the next one. And colleagues, we congregate today to participate in this industry talk where we have collaborated with these 3 institutions. And one might wonder, why UNISA? But at UNISA, we believe that dialogue is central to the efforts to improve states' general aviation. And for those who don't know as well, aviation is actually one of the institution's catalytic niche areas. So we have 10, and aviation is one of them. And it is important as well, we believe, for all stakeholders to come together, converse about the industry issues, and find solution to these issues. So the General Aviation Indaba was born out of this desire to create such a platform to bring together thought leaders in the sector with a view of transforming the industry. So we also have, academics, we generally have academic freedom, what we call academic freedom, where we really look and zone in to different aspects, and we sometimes publish papers. And so we generally look at things from that angle, but sometimes it's nice to also get people who are on the ground to come and speak, not from an academic angle, but from an angle of people who are on the ground. And we are hoping that if we zone into one sector, for instance, the piloting sector, and because the statistics from the CAA show that there are disparities along the gender, social, and racial lines, these statistics for us are evidence of the need to transform the aviation indaba. And we are hoping that today we are going to achieve that. And UNISA, as a research institution, we are very, very big on research. In fact, the main KPI of the institution after teaching and learning is research. So as a research institution and an institution of higher learning, we feel like we are best placed to steer the conversation in this regard. That is why we have decided here today to invite speakers from different disciplines. We have the speaker from the academic sector, we have a speaker from the regulatory sector, we have one from the government sector, the business sector, the student sector. And we are hoping that these deliberations here today will be fruitful and provide us with key insight on the state of the aviation industry and the solution required thereto. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2024 General Aviation Indaba.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mhlongo, for that word of welcome. Moving right along, I will invite to the stage Advocate Annalise Lawrence. She's an advocate of the High Court. She's a specialist in aviation law. We engage with her many times on legal issues in the international law and aviation law sector. She is going to be dealing with the topic transformation and development of the general aviation sector in South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, this woman is loaded with lots of experience. Prepare your ears to listen to the wisdom that she carries. Advocate Lawrence, please, the stage is yours.
Many thanks, Professor Dube, and thank you for the opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to be able to address you today and on this specific and special topic that was handed to me or entrusted to me by Professor Dube. When first asked to address the Aero Expo event on this occasion, I was quite excited about the topic that I was entrusted with, but upon proper consideration, I found that it was actually a very intricate and quite difficult topic to approach. What I was asked to address you on today is the matter of transformation and development in the general aviation sector in South Africa. I've pondered the issue in many ways and came to the conclusion that merely apart from citing large amounts of statistics, I do not have personal knowledge in respect of many of the issues but for the legal side of it. I've then decided that on a practical level I will have to engage some of my colleagues, some pilots, some of the industry leaders to get a better understanding of the practical issues that present themselves in the sector itself. I went and I had a specific chat to some people, and I've been afforded many perspectives in respect of the issues that present themselves on this level. Due to the fact that personal knowledge does not vest with me in all respects, I then pondered whether or not it would be a good idea to raise issues whereupon questions might be asked that I would not be able to answer. I then decided to rather base this address today on my personal knowledge and experience insofar as I have knowledge in respect hereof. This was specifically triggered by a good friend of mine who sent me a message, Ms. Rose Maluleka, who said to me, "My friend, go and represent our girls. One of my girlfriends just graduated to be a commercial pilot, Ms. Latoya Steenbok. She did her training at Wonderboom. And I immediately realized that I need to confine my address today to the subject of gender transformation and development, in respect of which I actually do have knowledge and experience. It is therefore, ladies and gentlemen, that today I present you with great pleasure and honor that we celebrate at Aero South Africa 2024 the entry of women into the aviation sector. I'm delighted to commemorate the remarkable achievements and contributions of all participants in the aviation industry as a whole to global connectivity, economic growth, and cultural exchange. Transformation of the aviation sector has been a sensitive subject globally, not only in South Africa. Since the signing of the Convention on the International Civil Aviation, also known as the Chicago Convention in 1944, the crucial role of air transport bringing the world together have been celebrated in helping countries to cooperate and collaborate, in securing the highest practical degree of uniformity to truly realize rapid transit networking at the service of all mankind. One such an initiative has been launched internationally, known as ICAO's Gender Equality Program. It is also supported in South Africa by the Transport of Ministry. I have, however, been requested on this instance to address the issue of general aviation, which is quite different from aviation inclusive of commercial aviation. Pursuant to the research that I've conducted and the discussions that I've had with industry leaders, I've come to the realization that the issue cannot be fully addressed without reference to the complete aviation ecosystem, involving aircraft manufacturers, approved training organizations, airports, traffic control, and regulatory bodies as a whole. I shall therefore proceed to provide a general overview of the limited participation of women in the aviation industry, followed by practical examples of difficulties encountered in the specific general aviation sector in South Africa. Today's address was initially triggered by the statistics advanced by the Civil Aviation Authority, in respect of which it was found that aviation transformation is not cleared for takeoff due to the reason that white males make up 72% of pilots, African males 10%, colored and Asian men 4.5%, white females 6%, African females 5.5%, colored and Indian females 2%. However, and on the flip side, I'm not sure if you do know that on the independent online platform, which was published on the 10th of April 2024, South Africa rates amongst the top 5 countries in the world with the highest number of females in aviation. A rating secondary to Ireland, with 9.9% of the country's pilots being female. The first country with the most transformed aviation female sector is India. Further, the Civil Aviation Authority of South Africa represents 51% of females being employed by the Civil Aviation Authority. I proceeded to do a comparative analysis in respect of the low participation rate of women and minorities in aviation, and have in respect of the USA, South Africa, as well as Australia. These findings have been recorded in the research was done by the Bureau of Labor of Statistics in the USA, the Department of Human Resources Management at the University of Pretoria, and the School of Management at the University of Sydney. In the reports prepared, it was found that in respect of the USA, according to the BLS, which stands for the Bureau of Labor Statistics, only 5.3% of all aircraft pilots and flight engineers were women. 93% were white, 3.9% were black, 1.5% were Asian, and 6.1% were Hispanic or Latino in 2021. The data concerning aircraft mechanics and service technicians was very similar. According to the 2021 BLS data, only 3.2% of all aircraft mechanics and service technicians were women, 5.7% were black, 4.2% Asian, 15.3% were Hispanic or Latino, and 98.3% were white. The participation rate of women and minorities in these highly paid aviation occupations is low compared to the total population of employed persons in the United States. On the total number of employed persons, 16 years of age and older, 47% were women, 9.8% were black, 9% were Asian, 18% were Hispanic or Latino, and 77.5% were white. In this study, they've gone further to try and establish what the reasons were, why women were hesitant to participate in the aviation sector, and the reasons for the limited participation in itself. The findings made were that the participation rates of women and members of minority groups has been historically low, according to data from the Federal Aviation Administration. While many studies have focused on the reasons behind the low participation rates, some studies have focused on the experience of women in aviation. The findings made by Turney 2018 looked at the recent studies and what they revealed about the reasons that women were not attracted to aviation careers. The author found that there were many factors that led to the underrepresentation of women in the aviation field. One major factor that has been addressed is women's lack of confidence in mathematical and science fields. Women lack the role models, parental and social influence in these programs to make them feel confident in their abilities to be equal to their male counterparts. Marantseva et al. 2022 explored the key reasons for low female representation in pilot training recruitment. Many studies have found that the problems of gender discrimination and the stereotype of the aircraft pilot as a purely male type of job are dominant. A qualitative study was conducted utilizing the semi-structured in-depth interview of 9 female pilots from Europe, Australia, and the United Kingdom to explore why there were so few women aircraft pilots. The study found that along with the high cost of training, gender inequality was a large factor in their decisions. Reasons such as lack of role models for young girls and women in aviation, cultural sexism, and lack of acceptance from male peers and passengers continue to hinder the promotion of the pilot profession amongst women. Oppengard and Esson, 2016, conduct a mixed method study to investigate the experiences of female pilots. The researchers asked commercial and corporate pilots, how can we recruit and retain more women pilots? 61 surveys then interviewed were completed, and the results of the study indicated that female pilots face significant barriers to their career paths. Themes found included needed for a supportive partner, a confident and strong personality, parental and familial encouragement, desire for challenge and excitement, need for awareness and role models, and system-level problems. In the USA, the Federal Aviation Administration has established the Women in Aviation Advisory Board, which was created to develop recommendations and strategies to encourage and support women to pursue careers in aviation. This was the studies conducted in respect of the USA. A comparative study was also done between South Africa and Australia. This study was aimed to establish the differential item functioning and equivalence of aviation gender through questionnaire that was posed to a variety of females participating in the aviation sector, not only in respect of pilots. A sampling frame for the South African survey was derived from a cross-section of a range of aviation organizations. A total of 1,800 questionnaires were distributed by hands to the pilots of 23 aviation organizations that were willing to participate. This included 7 flight training schools, 10 charter companies, 5 airlines, and the South African National Air Force. A total of 586 questionnaires were returned, of which 544 of the respondents were South African pilots by nationality. The sample for the Australian survey was selected on the basis of the membership of various pilot associations and interested groups in Australia. A total of 6,100 questions were distributed via newsletters to the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, Australian Federation of Air Pilots, Australian International Pilots, the Australian Women Pilots Association. Access to the military was not granted. The end result of the results of the principal factor extraction and Promax rotation were based on the flying proficiency, the flight confidence, and attrition of flight standards. The results of the principal access factor analysis performed indicated that the factor structures for South African and Australian samples were similar, and that 4 factors had been properly determined for both groups. It follows that although the aviation industry must continue to find ways to increase the number of women and minority members and sectors pertaining to gender, it is well intact with its progress in comparison to that with the rest of the world as we stand at this point in time. In fact, we rate as one of the 5 top countries in respect of which women are mostly empowered in the aviation sector. I now proceed to deal with the, excuse me if you can just bear with me a second. I proceed to deal with the issues on a practical level relating specifically to the general aviation industry as basis for the low participation rate, which can be summarized as follows. ICAO defines these, general aviation as all civil aviation operations other than scheduled air services and non-scheduled air transport operations for the remuneration or hire, We can therefore generally divide the 4 sections into 4 specific categories: humanitarian aid, recreational purposes, small business or medium business and business travel, as well as lastly agricultural, environmental and bush flying and small sector. Transformation in the humanitarian aid, such as police services, air ambulances, firefighting, all include non-passenger air services, are instances which are subject to government procurement policies and are automatically inclusive of the principles of promoting opportunity to previous disadvantaged individuals. It follows that on this ground, the humanitarian aid is supportive of transformation in itself as it stands. With regards to the recreational purposes, sport and recreational activities are largely hobby-orientated. They generally constitute individuals between the age of 40 to 60 years of age who are passionate about flying and closer to retirement age. People are encouraged from all levels of society to take part in sport and recreational activities. But due to the large unemployment rate, which is estimated at 32.9% in the first quarter of 2024 by Stats SA, people are looking for employment opportunities, which are limited on a recreational level as it is not an income-driven industry. Transformation opportunities, if not driven by a passion for flying, in respect of the individual, is therefore problematic in this sector as it is based on voluntary participation in itself. When it comes to mid-business practices and business travel, there are opportunities available to everyone in the aviation sector, and these opportunities are also supported by initiatives. Some of these initiatives include ICAO's Gender Equality Program, which is supported by the Transport Ministry. There's also a recent initiative for the establishment of the Aviation Academy by Civil Aviation Branch of the Nelson Mandela Bay University. The South African Civil Aviation also has external bursary programs, which will soon include aeronautical engineering, cadet pilot program, and aircraft maintenance programs. Awareness and outreach to schools are done. Bursaries by the ATNS to prospective ATCs and other engineer-related disciplines. The Young Eagles Initiative, affording bursary to ambitious young minds. It must, however, be considered and remembered that in respect of small businesses, outside of the midsection of the aviation sector, people are often not equipped to be able to facilitate training and employment of more individuals due to financial constraints. Often in a small family business, one person is responsible for the duties of 3 people due to economic circumstances and unable to facilitate more expenses without losing business viability. In addition, government departments are in general more focused on KPIs and not always specifically inclined to full skill development and the execution of the incentive programs available. In order to overcome these issues, one has to view it from a 2-dimensional perspective, by separating the facts and to interrogate the issues. Small businesses operate to generate income, usually just enough to make a living and maintain sustainability. Everyone has a willingness to promote transformation agenda, but the financial means become the problem. It is therefore that the answer to these issues can be encompassed in a few steps, which I will conclude with today. The first of these steps is the integrated framework. The answer to a successful achievement of transformation can be found in the overcoming of challenges hindering the aviation sector's transformation. There's an urgent need for an integrated framework that encompasses collaboration, innovation, and sustainability. This framework should focus on several key aspects: collaboration and knowledge sharing. Stakeholders across the aviation ecosystem need to come together and share best practices. Collaborative platforms that enable airlines, manufacturers, regulators, and research institutions to exchange ideas and pool resources can accelerate innovations. Excuse me. Incentives for research and development. Governments and industry bodies should provide incentives and funding and develop sustainable aviation technologies. Investing in propulsion systems, lightweight materials, and alternative fuels will be pivotal in shaping the future of aviation. Regulatory agility. Regulatory bodies should streamline approval processes for new technologies and current practices and procedures to run smoothly, while maintaining a proper safety standard and standardization. The industry should work towards developing standard frameworks for adopting new technologies, sharing ideas, data, implementing best practices as provided for in Article 37 of the Chicago Convention, read with Section 3 and 5 of the Civil Aviation Act. Public awareness. By increasing public awareness about the benefits of aviation and transformation, sustainability will garner support from pilots, investors, government, fostering a conducive environment for change. To end off with, the aviation industry's slow transformation is not merely a convenience, but critical imperative driven by environmental concerns, technological progress, and the need for enhanced efficiency. Integrated frameworks that prioritize collaboration, innovation, and sustainability will be catalysts for speeding up the sector's evolution. With concerted efforts from all stakeholders, the aviation industry can overcome its challenges and soar into a more sustainable and technological advanced future. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Advocate. I told you guys we're about to be addressed by a woman with so much knowledge. The 20 minutes I gave her were a pain to her. She had so much to share with us, but because of our continuous engagements with her, we know that in the future she will grace us again with the wisdom that she has. We will now proceed to the first panel. The way we are going to do it is like this. I will call the first two presenters. They will follow each other because their presentations are a little bit different. They will be flighting something on the screen, and then the remaining three presenters I will call to the seat up here. Right. I will start with Stephanus, and I will ask his colleague, Clinton Heyman, to come and introduce him, and then he will start.
Good afternoon, everyone. While Fani unpacks his flight bag, it's an honor to be here today. Prof, Michael, thank you very much. We are from the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development. We've recently had our agriculture part removed through the new Government of National Unity. And we are from a branch in that department called Spatial Planning and Land Use Management. And Fani is the drone director based in the Free State. And what we've been able to do in the last 2 years is start up a drone corporate business. Note corporate. We're not going into the space of the private sector. We don't charge money for the work we do, but all the flights that we will do and the data we will collect, we will put into a database, a GIS system, and make that data available to the country as a purpose of nation building. So as we do this, we focus on spatial transformation. We're looking at spatial justice and sustainability. We will look at areas of land. We will look at areas of zoning. We will help cities and municipalities where they need support. And we will also look at environmental climate change issues, as well as restitution issues for the department. We have been involved extensively, and Fani will get into all of this detail, in the recent disasters that have been taking place in PE, and the applications that the magicians like Fani do by taking the aerial imagery and putting it into actual 3D models is world class. So we make this available, this data available to all the municipalities. We flew PE, we've done the Tongaat Hewlett, sorry, I'm not a sugar man. The Tongaat tornado disaster, and we then make the imagery available to the national departments like COGTA, Department of Human Settlements, the National Disaster Management Center. We provide it to eThekwini, we provide it to the province. And with this information, then they can use that to improve the area post the disaster, but they can also use it to mitigate against future disasters. Tornadoes are a bit of an anomaly, so I don't know if you can mitigate against a tornado, but definitely when it comes to flooding. The program is brand new. I'm not going to go into all of the details on how we do it. I think the last thing that I want to say before I introduce Fani is that the one thing you need to do in government when you build a program like this is you have to navigate very, very smartly the supply chain process. If you don't navigate this thing well, you end up with drones in the cupboard. You end up with pilots behind their desks, or you end up with drones and pilots that can't fly anything. So you have to sort out that little triangle when you start up your business. And navigating that is a cumbersome process, but the best way to do it is to start. Fani?
My biggest challenge probably would be to stick to the 10 minutes afforded to me, but I'll do my best. Don't worry. I can work it in any case. So, let me just see if it works. Fantastic. So I want to do exactly the opposite than what my learned friend did, and I'm not quoting any legislation or a single fact throughout my presentation. The reason being is I think I want to share the story, what we've done, and in that story we learned a lot of things. About 2.5 years back, our minister, the current Speaker of Parliament, went to agriculture in the Western Cape, and they shown her drones. And obviously she was excited. She called my boss, he called me, and said, do this thing. And we did not know what we got ourselves into. It's that simple. But 2.5 years sort of down the line, I can report that it's working. So I'll just a brief, I'm not going to go too much into the opportunities and challenges. I wasn't too exactly sure how to pitch it, but I'll touch on the process maybe a bit more. So, and I created this picture with AI, so I can at least say I'm not an artist, but I know how to. So when we got this first call, this was what I called my boss and I said, so what do I buy? And he says, buy it. I don't want to say the last word he said because we might be in trouble. But so whatever we need. So if you can establish a business and you can buy anything you need and money is not an option, what is? And I think that's sort of central to what I'm trying to show. So obviously we are accountable for government money. Ne? You can't spend public money not accountable. So this thing is going to frustrate. Okay, I'm quite loud. I'm used to speak under the tree, so rural development. Can you hear me?
No, it's live streaming.
Oh, is it live? Okay. But then you'll probably have to switch these batteries. Okay. So the first thing that went through my mind is what I told the AI to create on the screen is, we were excited, we're going to fly the devil out of these little monsters. So we read up for about 6 months on what we want to do. So we did nothing for 6 months, like all good government people do. But we've read and we did our research. We looked at the international industry. I can tell you who builds what drones throughout the world at the moment. At the European Union at the moment, the research and development budget is 63 million euros. That's afforded on drones alone. So whoever's in this room, you could do quite a bit with 63 million euros. And the same company who got that grant just got another 23 million euros. So I don't know what they do with it, but it's amazing stuff. We actually had them here 2 weeks back to have a chat with them. So we started this with no institutional memory. And I think it's important. We got into aviation without having a clue. And so we had to read up. We bought the drones eventually, and 8 months later, they were all in the cupboard. Safely there, because we've been told we flew one, and then we're told we're not allowed to touch it. So we put it in the cupboard. So we started with the whole application, eventually discovered we'll have to fly under somebody else's UASOC. I must remember the new names. Civil aviation, just once I have it, they changed the legislation just to keep us on our toes. And we started with our own application process, and we're flying under a private person's let's call it the ROC. So operating certificate, let me stick there. So that is sort of our initial challenge. We had all of this excitement and all of this work to be done. We look after about 4 million hectares of land in the country that nobody else can do, so it's our responsibility to do something there. The plus side is all of our staff are either GIS practitioners or spatial planners or land surveyors or lawyers. In the land administration unit. Not that the lawyers were too helpful. I'm sorry, I'm joking with that. So we had this challenge. What do we do? How do we get it done? Because the people were eager. And maybe latching onto the discussion of transformation. So we had this department, I don't know how many are we, 4,000 people? 7,000 people. So we told 7,000 people, do you want to be a drone pilot? Put up your hand. In the first round, 8% ladies replied. Just roughly calculate. So it's free. You must just put up your hand. So it would be interesting now to figure out why. I must report we are currently standing about 30%, so it's changed quite a lot over the last time. So we're moving. So, and I've just put this up here. So the drone industry in South Africa is projected to grow to 134 million rands in 2025. As we're standing now, the war in Ukraine is fought with drones. The war in Gaza is fought with drones. And if we want to know this or not, this is where the world is going. All the technology and the stuff that we're busy reading up and seeing where it goes is literally delivering of blood and so forth, but I'll get to that. So I was here last week. This is George, and I had the opportunity to fly within the controlled airspace, spoke to the tower, it was fun. We're not used to, normally they ignore us, they tell us go fly and just don't speak to us. Then we fly and we get it done. So we did some work there. And to give you an idea, because I think that's, so you can picture this, the workflows, and I'll talk to it about, because that's the important part. We're all excited to fly. But if you fly, you don't have a product. Well, not with a drone at least. With anything else, you can have a product because you can transport people and so forth. But drones, you have to put something to that thing, a camera or a sensor or payload, and then you have to create a product that comes back. So we went around in South Africa. Currently in government, there's only 2 ROCs running. That we could find. Everybody says, we've got the program and we're flying, and then if we are starting questions, we realize, okay, probably illegally. So let's not quote them for now. So we ran into all of these things. But how do we make business sense? So the area you see, and I want to talk about, it's a farm that we're buying for 40 beneficiaries, the red line you see, and we're going to give them this property back. And there's a long story, we're going to build industry and so forth. But if you, and this is the challenge of government, and this is centered our return on investment, why we can establish this business within government, is when you need something, you need it now. And that's the crux that, where I think drones is very much different to your planes. We've got a program where the whole of South Africa in a 3-year cycle. I don't know if you know it. NGI is the department or the branch in the department that does it at 0.25 centimeters, and it's free. So if you want any centimeter of South Africa and you want a picture, it's available and you can get it for free. Our challenge was when we do projects, you want something of that space now. And George is one example. So we're busy flying that, and we put up a drone, and this is the workflow we're working at the moment. We flew for an hour, processed for 24 hours, created a geo-rectified image that's this accurate. I've measured it. My fingers can go that far. I'm not going to quote it, so I don't want to get into a fight about accuracy. And then we can publish that to a site with our GIS tools, so you can interrogate it and you get a digital twin. We all hear about digital twins. So you can literally do a virtual fly-through, or measure any window, I'll try, that's what I did. I just put on my Wi-Fi, I'll see if the light is enough. I'll show you some of the disaster footage we've taken. So within 2 days, okay, let's say 3 days, we've asked permission from Civil Aviation, lodged the flight plans, and go through. Everything I did is legal by now. I can just at least say that. So nothing I'm going to show you was done without following the exact letter to the law. But within 4 days, we can drive somewhere, we can fly it, and a day later, we can have a digital twin that's no more than 200 millimeters out, or have an error of more than 200 millimeters. And that's amazing, with contours up to 10 centimeters, and we can measure anything on that picture. Height, slope, whatever you want to think, and that's where we want to head. I'm happy to note that we've got people from Civil Aviation. I have to say something. So one of the challenges, for instance, that we ran into, and I wanted to say this, is anybody there that wants to start a drone program, don't stop before BV loss. You're useless before that. V loss and E loss is a rumor that's, in my mind, purely academic, because you can't do real work. Unless you want to do a nice display somewhere, that's fine. But in the real world, you've got trees between you and the thing you want. That sort of real world problem. So we've discovered we have to go to BV loss. This is Merweville. Now, my crowd might not be Afrikaans, so anybody from the Northern Cape, Western Cape or wherever, his book club was on CakeNet somewhere. And all ladies watch it, my wife included. So when I had to pick a town on driving, we did a test. I said, I'm driving to Cape Town. Can I stop on my way down, capture a whole town, and produce something that's useful on a one-day trip? And yeah, we took the book club down. So there you've got the little town. I flew 4 flights. And it's interesting, if you look at the town, it's between hills. So what I've discovered is, if you fly BV loss, you could get on top of the hill and see the drone at all times. But because when I registered this request, I only asked for VLOS in my flight plan that I lodged, so I couldn't fly BVLOS. So I had to go and stand in the middle of my 500 meters. And I had lots of fun running around trees, so I can actually keep on seeing the drone and fly legally. So what we see on a practical perspective, especially if you're mapping, if you don't do the BVLOS thing, BVLOS is actually more safe. because you can now get out of your 500-meter radius thing, stand on top of a height or anything, and be in control of that flight. And I think that was important. So then the next stuff we ran into, so now we've got all of these planes and they're flying, and then what? And we found a lot of the drone programs sort of stop at that exciting point. But what you have to do is, now I've flown Marival, what now? You have to put it into software where people who does not necessarily have the skills can access that data and do something useful with it. If you can't do that, then you don't have that whole thing in place. So what we've discovered is civil aviation doesn't allow a fire extinguisher in a plane. I'm right there? Yeah, a fire extinguisher. No, I'm not allowed to bring one in a plane, in a commercial plane, when I'm flying somewhere. So all of a sudden we sit with this national program, but if I go to George now, I can't fly there. I need to drive there because my fire extinguisher and my prescribed medical aid kit is not allowed to go on a plane. Because for obvious reasons, I don't disagree, but the stuff we ran into that sort of gave us troubles is the stupid stuff. No, we have to have a drone safe, because the civil aviation regulations is clear to say only people that's got AFSEC and is trained is allowed access to that aerial vehicle, so they can't put something in it or damage it or whatever. So we're busy. We bought all the safes of certain type of safe from CHOP South Africa. They're still importing new ones just to put in every province, so we can put this infrastructure in every provincial, so you can actually drive there and go get a little fire extinguisher and do your work within the province. So the stupid things that we ran into that is a major killer. Health and safety, yes. 1 minute, can't be true. I need to get to my pictures. So what you see there is Tongaat. I wonder if this is the one. Yeah. So that we flew on. What I'll do is I'll explain to you how to get all of this. You can actually access it on the internet and see it for yourself if you want to. So on the left is after the tornado. This was one flight. That's the school as we see it now. And that, if I can convince it to play, is actually in Arc Pro software. So this is not a video. This is the digital twin we built. And we can measure the height, the volume, the area, anything of what we see in there. So this is the actual software. It's just refreshing. So this is the type of products that we do. One or two more, then I'm done. Eastern Cape flooding, and I'll be careful with the truth now, so please don't quote me. I'm good at making career limiting statements. So we got this call to go and fly the disaster. And we did 18 areas, and you can see them there. The data is available. There's the stats. We had 4 pilots. We did this over roughly 2.5 days. We used 48 hours of processing. We created 85 gigs of data. And we saved government a cool R1 billion as on a return on investment. Because what we found informed a lot of decisions. And I think that's where we want to go. So put this 4 people, 2.5 days of work, a little bit of processing data, and where we went. So in summary, I'm almost there. So where we see is you can now imagine anything. We have a new minister, and we thought, should we not fly an area that he's familiar with? Because we're good at making maps and digital twins. But if I show you an area that you don't know, you don't understand what I'm talking about. But if I fly the area that makes sense to you, there's that connection. So we're probably going to send somebody there, and tomorrow afternoon going to have a digital twin and have something to speak about and relate to and fight the Victoria West story or whatever, wherever we go. Because we can now do it at a cost that's insignificant. A drone costs you 400,000 rand, the big ones. The fixed wing ones, I'm not talking about the other ones that can do mapping at a scale of I don't know, your GSD ground sampling distance is about 1.29 centimeters, and in terms of imagery, and automatically create contours and all of that. So yes, that's the last stuff. So we as government, and we've got about 50 pilots at the moment, hopefully to train another lot next year and buy lots more drones, want to do this thing to see can we not in time react to what is needed, and whatever is needed is what's needed. So you'll see I didn't define this because we don't know what's the next disaster or the next crisis or the next big project that needs to go up or whatever needs to be done, but you need to be able to react. So we're hoping to build a nice world-class service. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Fanny, for that insightful presentation and the visuals that were captivating. There's a lot we can do in the drone industry. I am sure most of us saw the opportunities and the challenges in that space. I would like to ask Mr. Neil de Lange from the Civil Aviation Authority, he's a senior manager there, General Aviation, to come forth and make his presentation. He is also a man full of so much knowledge. So let's open our ears again to him. Wealth of wisdom. After this, you will all have 185 gig of data from him. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prof. All right, let's see if we can plug this in. Let's see if it just displays. There we go. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Neil de Lange, as Prof has indicated. I'm Senior Manager for General Aviation at the Civil Aviation Authority. It's wonderful to be amongst legal experts and academics alike, and it's a wonderful opportunity to have been asked to form part of the conversation regarding general aviation and the way forward. I think it's a brilliant initiative, and I'm looking forward with high expectations, Prof, on what you will still achieve with that. My presentation is a short one. It just gives a bit of context as to what we do in this world of GA. And I think one of the things that came out was that there's remarkably different opinions and views on what constitutes general aviation. So, in the broad sense, general aviation means an aircraft operation other than a commercial air transport, air ambulance, or aerial work operation. Then there's ICAO, which is our International Civil Aviation Organization that defines it. And South Africa, being a signatory state to the Chicago Convention and a member of the International Civil Aviation Organization that sets the standards and recommended practices, as states such as South Africa adopt these into legislative environment and develop the requisite regulations in line with local context, being mindful of the sovereignty of South Africa. And we're going to speak about the legal framework in terms of making regulations and technical standards as it applies to South Africa. So perhaps it's an opportune moment also to say to my colleagues at SPLUMA that there's always an opportunity to amend the regulations as it pertains to drone operations. We're currently in a project to amend Part 101 and 71 that speaks to the licensing and the operations of these things. So there are currently work groups underway that looks at this, whether it's BVLOS or VLOS. General aviation in its colloquial media or general public, including Google, says anything other than military or non-scheduled relates to general aviation. So whatever you see outside here is general aviation. And to some extent, including the drone that's been flying here in the background. So GA includes the entire wide range of recreational aviation, which is a largely associated with non-type certificated aviation, which means something that doesn't qualify for the issuing of a certificate of airworthiness, rather gets an alternate permit. And that it also includes the operation of NTCAs insofar as contests, competitions, and air shows are concerned. I've got a picture here. I'm not too sure how many of you can see it. But basically, general aviation would include things like flight, training, aerial work, corporate aviation, and private and recreational flying. Whereas commercial air transport services have scheduled and non-scheduled services and relates to charter flights and on-demand flights. Then there's, as we've heard earlier, an ecosystem that support all of these things, which speaks to the air navigation services, aviation manufacturing, maintenance and repair, overall services, and airports and aerodrome services. And all of these are regulated through a set of regulations. Now, I've got a picture up here that basically just gives you an indication of everything that's parked outside other than balloons. Now, what makes general aviation a little bit different, especially from a safety perspective, is it's not as well organized as you would have a commercial airline. Imagine taking off at OR Tambo on the flight to Cape Town, and the pilot decides to do a low beat-up flight over Welkom. It doesn't work that way. The guys are literally on rails in the sky. But when it comes to GA, you have that freedom. You can take off and decide, I'm going to follow the river down here, and you might see something you want to investigate a little bit closer. It might be a lovely afternoon, so you might go and fly quite low. So you're a lot more reliant on your internal discipline to stay safe. So I've listed a couple of things that we have in the commercial aviation environment, particularly the airline environment, which does not necessarily translate directly to GA. And here we're talking about meticulous flight planning and support services relating to that, monitoring of flight profiles, extensive initial type training programs, high levels of technical training and testing, which to a large extent is voluntary in the GA environment. Multi-crew resource management training doesn't exist in the GA environment, especially on the lighter side and the recreational side. Intensive recurrent training programs, highly experienced instructors. We do have those in GA, but they're not scheduled in the same way. The maintenance of discipline, professional standards and committees that relate thereto, active peer review systems, multi-crew operations, meticulous flight crew selection procedures, and so forth and so on. So what happens in the environment in a big way is if you have enough money and resources, you can actually go and purchase an aircraft, learn to fly it, and fly it within the limitations of the regulations, which allows, in South Africa, a lot of freedom. So we're going to quickly just touch on what the CAA is doing to maintain safety levels in this regard. So keeping in mind that aviation is not something that functions on an island. We obviously compare ourselves on the international stage with other countries. And we realize the problems that we have in GA is the same problems we have in those particular sectors in GA in the rest of the developed world. So aviation, in particular GA, is inherently risky. Accidents cannot be completely eliminated, but the risks can be managed. Secondly, that the GA accident rate in South Africa is a reflection of international accident rates in other ICAO member countries. So it's not that we are that far apart from them. In fact, some of our studies indicate that we're actually doing better than some of our international counterparts. The GA safety strategy is something that we've embarked on. It's a long-term initiative designed to drive improved safety through increased activity, legislative development, education, and awareness. So the previous Minister of Finance have entered into an agreement with our Director of Civil Aviation insofar as managing and reducing the number of fatalities in the GA sector. And the General Aviation Safety Strategy was largely responding to that. It's a 5-year strategy. It's now in its 5th year, and we are going to implement that through a midterm review for the next 5-year cycle. There's a stat you can't see a lot of, but basically speaks to the accidents that we've been measuring in the GA, including aerial work operations category. And I must say that in the last 6 weeks, we've recorded 19 accidents. These are, fortunately, none of them were fatal, but these are people running off runways, running out of fuel, having technical issues, getting themselves into weather. We have what we call controlled flight into terrain and loss of awareness. So these are things that we're busy addressing through all of these. So the key pillars that the General Aviation Safety Strategy rests on is to identify and address the underlying precipitating factors that lead to GA accidents, to have a multifaceted and multidisciplinary approach to address these factors, have all stakeholders involved. So the Civil Aviation Authority does not function on an island. We work very closely with our sector and with our industry. In fact, sometimes I believe more than it is necessary, but we want to be as comprehensively informed before we make certain decisions. We have focus groups that comprise from industry members and the regulator alike that looks into the various areas, and to have sustained and inclusive initiatives to implement these approaches. We've had some highlights. To date, it's all over. This is published on our website under the GAS banner. We have so far inter-organizational outcomes such as educational guidance material and general aviation accident reduction seminars with the Personnel Licensing Department and AIID, which is Aviation Accident Incident Investigation Division, outreach programs at events, Skywatch publication, which is like a magazine, comes out quarterly with tips and articles on safety and stats. The Safety Week, which we drive through our Corporate Communications Department, and we've also concluded an awareness program for RPAS as a subset of the RPAS Industry Forum with the Airworthiness Department, which is where we are looking at the amendment of regulations relating to drones in its wider sense. Inclusive of air mobility, which is the new thing. So for now, drones are flying with payloads of cameras and perhaps emergency medical services. But in the not too distant future, we believe we're going to start seeing passengers, and we have to start making provision for enhanced air mobility through these sort of flying. For now, people are most comfortable to fly with a pilot in the front. But we are going to get to a point where that's going to change. That's just how the industry is developing. We've completed a midterm review. We've spoken about that. We're going to implement as of next year. Compile an implementation plan for year 5. We're looking at that. We're busy dealing with continuing with the Skywatch, general aviation accident reduction seminars, where this is mainly aimed at instructors, where we're trying to teach instructors how to instruct. Because we found, and I've heard this wonderful word used, attrition in the knowledge pool. You can only teach what you know. And if you teach 95% of what you know, that guy becomes an instructor and he's going to teach 95% of 95%. And over time, you lose that depth. We found with the modern way of doing things, I've been flying for 35 years. The modern way of doing things is different in the sense that WhatsApp and social media has become so demanding on our time that we don't spend time at the airfields anymore. We don't have hangar talk. We don't sit and share ideas around the pub, around a beer, about, safety events. Because one thing happens and the next thing, the young people now come to the flying school, and by the time they pitch up at 8 o'clock in the morning, they've already done 4 things. When it was my turn, I got there, it was the first thing I did. So times have changed and the demand on our time. So we have to embrace the newer technologies. So we're obviously looking at educating our educators. We've spoken about reduction seminars, outlying flying clubs, safety awareness. We, as a regulator, starting to go out to all the areas. I see some of my team sitting here. Thank you. They're going out to all the different provinces and go and speak to clubs to try and close the gap between the industry and the regulator. We are supposed to be there for them, not the other way around. Pilot support services, creation of a web-based GA safety portal on our website. So when you're a GA pilot, you can go to one place, you can get weather reports, you can file flight plans, you can get all sorts of information, aeronautical information circulars, publications, and all sorts of things that assist you with the planning of your intended flight. We're increasing our visible presence, and the safety strategy we've spoken in terms of the next medium-term expenditure framework, which we are dealing with. There's a picture of the Skywatch. Right, now let me quickly just touch on regulation development. I promise I'll be quick. I haven't had my 1-minute call yet. Thanks, too. So we have a thing we call CARCOM. CARCOM is the Civil Aviation Regulation Committee. This is a bunch of people from the industry and from the regulator alike that deals with proposals and amendments to regulations. In fact, we've just had the minister sign off the 29th Amendment dealing with a whole whack of regulations that we are changing, amendments to regulations. Part 11 of our regulation speaks to the process of making rules. And also the process of granting exemptions, the filing of differences with our International Civil Aviation Organization, the erecting of specialist committees, the publication of AICs, which is Aeronautical Information Circulars. The DCA can make rules or orders and directives to promote the objectives of the Civil Aviation Act. Specialist committees that sits at this regulation committee is for infrastructure, aviation safety operations. Now, infrastructure is airports and airspace. Aviation safety operations is basically operations and airworthiness. That's whatever goes on out there. Even if a foreign operator wants to fly into South Africa, they have to get certain permissions. We call it a foreign operating permit, and then that's something that's dealt with there. Safety standards and assurances. These guys are just looking at quality control across the board. Aviation security, there was a reference to AFSEC earlier that didn't want to allow fire hydrants or whatever extinguishers on aircraft. But if you want to go fly, then you have to have one on board. Fees and general procedures and so forth and so on. Right, most recent regulatory amendments under consideration. I'm just mentioning that because this is stuff that's on the table as we speak. Provide for a 5-year renewal for operators. Right, risk and performance-based oversight. Now, just very quickly, we are moving away as an organization from a regulation compliance oversight to a risk-based oversight model, which means if we identify your organization as risky, we will be there more often. If we identify your organization as less risky, we will allow you some more flexibility and issue you for longer periods of time. So we will move to a risk-based organization. So we'll craft a matrix of establishing risk in your organization and oversee you according to your risk. And there's a whole lot of technical issues sitting at the back of that. And that goes for all airlines, all operators, flying schools, drone operations, and everything like that. Provide for commercial adventure aviation. Right? Commercial adventure aviation. Adventure aviation is what we fly with when we fly these small little things like microlights and light sport aircraft and gyroplanes and so forth and so on. But we want to open that commercially for adventure purposes and for tourism. Low visibility arrivals and departures, which applies to all sorts of regulations. Amend requirements for recreational pilot licenses. We're currently going through a process to make sure that the regulation is fit for purpose, that it is more open to the industry, lowering the barriers of entry, not lowering the standard. Provide for RPAS and advanced air mobility, provide for peer support programs, more or less SMS. SMS is the safety management systems in terms of AVMET. Provide for refined airport and heliport regulations. We are increasingly looking at how we can make that better. It touches on a lot of SPLUMA stuff. Amend security regulations for baggage screening at airports, provide for cybersecurity enhancements in aviation and operations relating to all sorts of things. This is just what's on the table at the moment. So we have meetings pretty much monthly, and we would like to invite the industry, and particularly the academics, and particularly the guys at SPLUMA and government, and particularly when it comes to your area, to get involved, and not just to say it's silly regulations, but they may be silly. But then let's fix it. Prof, with that, I'll gladly take any questions if there are, or be guided by yourself, but thank you so much once again for the opportunity. So, thank you.
We will take the Q&A session after the two speakers, the two incoming speakers speak. Thank you so much for that, Neil. Ladies and gentlemen, for the next session of our first panel, I'd like to invite to the stage Dr. Masa Chaba, who is our Executive Dean in the College of Economics and Management Sciences at UNISA, together with Caroline Ongersbroek, who comes from the Rural Aerodrome Company, to join me on stage. And then after their presentation, we'll take a round of questions, which will include the first two speakers. So after they're done, I'll invite the first two speakers to join us up there as well. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the setup of the next talk is going to be like this. I will pose a question to the two ladies, and they will respond to tell us their story. I will begin with Caroline, all the way from Victoria West. I remember that little dot on the navigation map that used to traumatize me. They would say, you're flying from Victoria West to Cape Town. I'd be like, where is Victoria West? But yes, that was back in the day. So Caroline, what was the thinking behind the Rural Development Company and what it's trying to do, reviving rural airports?
Greetings, everyone. Thanks very much for the invitation. It's a privilege to be here. Yeah, it's been a long road. My background is property development, construction, telecommunications, and in the last 16 years, it's about tourism growth and development. And at one stage, I was a board member of the N12 Treasury Route. And in my one NPO that I've got, Sustainable Tourism Partnership Program, we went and looked at all different opportunities and were teaching about rural development, but in a sustainable kind of a way. And driving up and down the N12 and having all these workshops in all these towns, there was incredible opportunity in Victoria West. Firstly, it's in the middle of absolutely nowhere. To get there, you can only drive. Okay, you can fly. And about 8 years ago, the town had an investment summit, and I drove down the 894 kilometers from my front door. I used to live in Sandton, 5-bedroomed guest house, beautiful. And I just said, okay, let's do this. So went to the investment summit and they said, right, there's a few things that are available. It's the airport, the golf course, the nature reserve, and the squash courts for whatever reason, and the golf course. So I go, no. The only thing from wearing the hat of a property development, from a property development point of view, and a sustainability and growing rural, putting all of those things together, it made sense to bid for the airport. You can do the property thing, and also I won't have to drive 894 kilometers. I'd be able to fly. So it kind of like all made sense. And so we then started on the regulatory processes with putting in the bid to the municipality, working together with the Premier's Office of the Northern Cape to put all the legal things into place. We got the lease agreement. We signed the lease agreement. It had four clauses that the municipality had to fulfill, and they didn't.
Okay. Moving on to the second question. You've already told us why this project started, but what were the challenges when you started this project that you faced in trying to develop that particular airport? Okay,
so at the time, in 2022, funding was not an issue. We had $100 million available to us. Outside funding, we were able to do whatever we wanted to do. So the issue that really prevented the development at the time was we needed a signature from the municipal manager to say that the area could be registered in the company's name with a lease for 22 years, and that letter has never arrived. We are on municipal manager number 9. We are on mayor number 5, and we are now 38 councillors later. So it's a regulatory municipal issue as to why we can't do it. And it really saddens me because if you look at what opportunities the rural airports actually can actually bring, and that is bring education to rural. So the people don't have to leave rural, okay, to get involved in aviation. They can stay in their hometowns or close by to their families, etc., and they can learn everything about general aviation, and they can get involved in aviation. It's not only that, besides the training and the education, it just grows tourism. It brings people into the area, just grow the tourism side of things. It creates an industrial zone. Automatically, it creates that. Where Victoria West is, it's 135 kilometres away from Carnarvon. Carnarvon, they are investing billions of dollars into the SKA scenario. Can't fly planes in there. So the quickest place to fly into would be Victoria West. Right now, the scientists are flying into Uppington, and they're flying into Kimberley, and they have to drive 4.5 hours to get to their destination. They lose 1 day of work entirely. So if you think about it from an economic point of view, just to service Carnarvon, okay, it makes sense to develop that airport. Not only that, there's been a feasibility study done that if you wanted to, for growth of Loxton will build, or Sandby will build a succulent nursery in Loxton that also creates incredible amounts of work. But they need to be able to fly out their produce, okay? So that becomes an economically viable thing. They will not do it, isn't an airport close by. There's a rose farm that's 70 kilometres away from Victoria West. They've got 75,000 rose bushes. They said they cannot grow any more roses because they can't get their produce out. If they had the airport there, they would plant another 75,000 trees. They'd employ another 20 people. Okay, so just by having the airport there, it's already of huge economic benefit to the region.
Yeah, I've heard the challenges. What do you think can be done by the states and other stakeholders to make this process much more meaningful and easier to navigate?
I just think the power can't really be with the municipal manager. There's got to be some other way around it to get through that process. But we now looking at a multiple amount of rural airports. There are a lot of rural airports that are run by municipalities, and municipalities are not in the business of aviation. They have got absolutely no clue, and it's an opportunity for us to look at aerodromes, smaller airports that need some tender loving care and that need to be run properly. And at those airports, we could actually put in all the training services and then have those small industrial zones that would absolutely benefit every single little town where there would be a development. So the money is out there. Although investors are saying, Caroline, please don't come to us with another story. Come to us with leases, come to us with the plan, and we'll give you the money. But we're not giving you the money if you don't have all of those things. So we kind of like in a catch-22 situation. But I think we're quite near to progress.
Thank you, Caroline. From the Rural Aerodrome Company all the way from Victoria West, we come now to the University of the Land, University of South Africa, represented by the Dean in the College of Economics and Management Sciences, Dr. M.T. Masichaba. Dr. Masichaba is a well-established institution of higher learning. What are the current program offerings of relevance to aviation at UNISA?
Caroline said municipalities are not in the business of aviation, and in the same way, universities are not in the business of aviation. And generally, UNISA has adopted aviation and aerospace studies as one of its catalytic niche areas. In order for us to align ourselves with those niche areas, the College of Economic and Management Sciences has a master's in transport economics, and we also offer, if you are interested in improving your studies, your own topic that you can bring in. In the College of Law, we have an LLM by research and PhD levels as well. So you can bring anything that has got to do with aviation so that you improve your qualification. We have a very strong supervision record in international aviation law, spanning in areas of accident investigations, regulating unruly passengers, the use of unmanned vehicles and unmanned aerial systems in the context of war, and also unmanned aerial vehicles in South Africa and other SADC spaces. Further, we have seminar series on mainstreaming military law, which looks into the application of the law of war. We often have presentations on unmanned aerial systems in the context of warfare. And over and above academic and tuition offerings, we produce knowledge in the context of conferences where research papers are issued. For example, between the 18th and the 20th of September 2024, we will have a conference themed on aviation law in Cape Town at the UNISA Aero campus, which will lead into a book of aviation law and will be published by the UNISA Press. And there could be other things that UNISA offers. However, we rely on you. Caroline was saying that the municipal manager must not be in charge, and I believe it's people who are sitting here who can be in charge, and we need you guys to be in charge of those municipalities.
Wonderful. So, what future programs are there, is UNISA planning perhaps to add that would be of relevance to the aviation industry?
As the previous speaker was saying, he spoke about the risk-based models that must come in. At the moment, we are designing a specialized master's degree in aviation law. It will cater for the aviation practitioner who needs to gain a deeper understanding of both the international and the domestic legal frameworks in the aviation industry. However, if you are not in the law side, you can also just bring your own topic that the university can look at. We can also have micro-credentials for those who are lazy to study or not lazy to study. Those who want shorter programs, we can also have those micro-credentials. But we don't know what the future holds. That 140 million industry that we were talking about, we need people who can teach those and teach 100%, and we hope that we will create things that you people design for yourself and UNISA can provide.
So apart from what you've just mentioned now, what's available and what's coming in the future related to aviation, what's the value proposition for UNISA outside the aviation related space?
Okay, outside. So UNISA has been around for 150 plus. We are now 151 years old, and we allow students from all over, those rural students. And there are, because of the open distance education that we provide, we remain as the best suited for the aviator. For instance, during COVID-19, a lot of pilots had to be set off from their jobs because we were all quarantined and could not travel. But those who had other qualifications were able to dust off their CVs and were able to get other jobs. So right now, in case one of the pilots loses their license due to any disease that is not allowed in the industry, then you are able to continue and do other jobs. We are also looking into having entrepreneurship as one of our flagships as a university. So we are encouraging aviators to have alternative qualifications. You can be employed anywhere. That could be you can step back and be in the offices. You can step back and be a conference manager. You can step back and do anything else. So we offer lots of opportunities. We also have a lot of vibrant qualifications that you can get into. We have an affordable and vibrant MBA and NBL, which can equip aviators to be effective leaders. We need you guys at the ACCA. We need you guys being professors as well. We never thought, we know that you are a group of very intelligent people. We need this group to become academics. The NDP needs a lot of PhD graduates, and they need to come from this group of people. So there are short learning programs as well, and also those that are short. In the College of Law, they have short learning programs in corporate governance as well. So yes, and all UNISA qualifications are globally accredited. So wherever you are studying while sitting in that cockpit, you can still be able to study. And with us moving away from venue-based exams and being online, you do not have to be sitting on a desk to write your exam. You can be flying in the air and writing your examinations or sitting right here.
Thank you so much, ladies. I will open up for 3 questions, and then we move on to the next session. If there are any 3 questions from the floor, I will ask my 2 other colleagues to come join us on the stage, so we can take those 3 questions. There was a question at the back. Yes, the gentleman, the lady, and the lady. All right, the 3 of them in that order.
Good afternoon. My question regards to the strategic partnership between public sector and private sector for the long-term plan, because we see the lag where we have in the public sector in terms of obviously regulations and getting sign-offs, but then to create entrepreneurs and innovations in the rural areas. What is the strategic plan going 5, 10, 15 years and as far as 40 years from now? Thank you.
To whom is the question directed?
Beg pardon?
To whom is the question directed?
Both UNISA as well as the rural development.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We are presently having partnerships with the government. Just last week we had a meeting or a conference with the DPSA together with the DPSA is the Department of Public Service and Administration, and we have also been engaging with the presidency. So it is UNISA's goal for 2024 and going forward to work together with the government in everything, because we usually blame each other. Most of you will know that in the news there has been about UNISA being under administration, and we have gone out to say we should work very closely with the government, and that is what we are doing. And we will wait. We don't only wait for the government to bring the problems to us, but we have something called community engagement. And in whatever area they need us to engage in, we are doing that. Specifically on aviation, will not be able to respond on that. But when it comes to the government, we are very close with them, and so close that we have access to the DGs. On our Friday celebration of 151 years, we had almost all the DGs of all the departments visiting us. So that is very close. Even though we did not have a cabinet, the DGs had visited us.
They don't leave their jobs. Yeah, that's quite an interesting question. From our point of view, we're looking at a 20-year kind of a scenario, and the education part in the rural areas, and I'll take Victoria West as an example, is that we really, really want to get maths, science, chess, art involved with the youngsters. I mean, we've already seen it. We've got 3 youngsters. We've put them through a process where they've become teachers. They were maths graduates. They're now teachers in the high schools. And we've got an after-school kind of maths lessons. And the mass literacy of these kids have already gone. Not one of them got less than 60% last year. Not one of them. They all passed to 60% plus. And it was because of the work that we are doing with the kids. They go to the library. Every single day we've got a library program where one day it's English, the next day it's Afrikaans. All those kids that went through on the program all passed with over 45% in their language. And most of them, in fact, got over 75%. So if we start with them young, and we can instill like a habit almost of learning and reading, and when they see the planes flying in the sky, they want to go, I want to sit in that plane. I want to become that person. So right now, what's happening in the rural areas is that there is no hope. It's like 90% unemployment. So their parents haven't worked. Their parents didn't work, so they don't work. And, you know, getting up and going to school is like, it's like, do I really need to do it? But if you give them kind of like goals to go through to, and it's fun. We make maths fun. We make reading fun. We make, you know, even when the fruit is out, we take the kids to go and pick the fruit, and then they've got to count it, and then they've got to multiply it, and they've got to do all. They don't even realize that they are learning, okay? But we are making it fun. And so that is to create those opportunities. And then we've got to start with them small, and then we've got to put in all these different kind of academies that we bring to the rural.
Thank you. The two questions, I suggest that the lady there, your hand was up, you pose your question, then that's why you pose your question as well, and then the answer.
Good day. My question is for Dr. Masuchaba. I want to ask, like, as a commercial pilot myself and being interested in studying aviation-related courses at UNISA, do I get accreditation from what I have achieved already as a pilot, or do I have to start from the beginning?
I've been looking at you and how young you are and how many stripes you have. I don't know what they mean, but thank you so much for choosing me. UNISA does not have aviation qualifications, but with what you have, then we can start you at a higher level, depending on what you have, and then we take you up. That's why I was talking about the LLMs, to say it's a master's in law, and then you can come and say aviation law. Then, yeah, so it's a research, and then we put in your part in it, what you want to write about. Then you research about that. You look at literature in the world and everywhere, and then you put in your own things, and then you create your own knowledge. Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My question is directed more particularly to the lady from the University of the Land and the various stakeholders from government. So I just wanted to... So I just wanted to find out if there's been any sort of amalgamation between UNISA and government in terms of maybe putting together a program or a piece of study work which would be useful for both people training conventionally as pilots and streamlining into the conventional way of going into university. Because you get countries like the UAE where they have universities of aviation, has the CAA and universities of institutions of higher learning got together and actually sat down about this and actually try to find the bridge between the abundance of pilots we have, but then are stuck and are unemployed because of the high hour threshold requirements. Thank you.
It's like you were listening to some secret meetings. Pretoria, only Pretoria. I don't know how many, what do we call them? Airports or air. So Pretoria has the highest airports, I think, in the country, the highest number. And as a university, we are working on having those aviation qualifications. We just do not have the professors who must teach them. I think right now we only have one professor. But there's those who have been to UNISA graduations, or there's an advert of UNISA, aviation is one of the 10 catalytic niche areas, meaning that for the next, up to 2030, we are working hard on having it as one of the 10 most. And we have also appointed a professor in that research niche area who will then investigate what we should have and what we can do. So we are looking at the space that we have, and we will be using it. We don't have it finalized yet. We don't have anything solid yet, but it is in the process. I don't want to give a promise now and say it will happen next year or the following year, but it is in the pipeline. Okay. I'll ask Prof to add on it because he was given that assignment as well.
Thank you very much. I cannot divulge much, but yes, we are working on it. We are looking into calculating a system where you come out both as a pilot and with another qualification, a degree of sorts. So, but that is still in the works. I can't say much about it, but we are working on that because it's a need that we have identified in South Africa. So those of us who are trained in both fields, we are using that training to advise the university on which way to go. Okay. One last question, and I'm closing it. We go to the next panel. The gentleman over here.
Thank you. My question is based on not on what is happening to people that are already in aviation, but more to people that would like to be in aviation. We have been listening to speeches about rural areas and so on. I'll try to be as brief as possible. Ours is so rural that when people go to town, they take 3 days. You go and sleep closer to where the bus takes off. You take the bus in the morning, you go to town, you come back in the evening, sleep over, and then walk back home in the morning. Now, what we did was to try and get aviation closer to the people. Unfortunately, it's not that easy because of funding problems and so on. We have created an aircraft maintenance organization. We are licensed, but we are having a lot of challenges. Our idea was to have aviation introduced to students at a lower level, because I take it from how I got interested in aviation and how much I battled. I have tried everything. We were the first 3 black people in South Africa to get private pilot licenses, being trained those years by the then Transkei government. We battled. We never had money. We wrote commercial exams because we had to fly the 200 hours. We didn't have the money. We lost those credits. It's just a long story, but I'll try to be as brief as possible. So what I would like to get advice from the panel is, how could we get assistance so that we are able to engage government to introduce aviation at a lower level? We have had systems set up in such a way that we would be able to bring in students at our own cost. Students once a month at a lower level to come and learn more about aviation so that we are able to introduce to them what is there in aviation so that we are also able to identify this one is good as a pilot, this one is good as an aircraft engineer, that one would be an air hostess and so on. But we are facing an uphill battle. I will stop there for now because I don't want to take too much of your time. Thank you.
It's a very dangerous thing to say you are from government, but I am. So, and I like what the last gentleman said, so maybe within the next month we need to bring the MM to Victoria West and get the kids from the local school to go and fly. With us it's easy, the toys are small, we can put them in the boot and we can drive the bigger planes. It's got more issues. So, we've been doing it last week, Thursday I was in Timaletu in George, and we let the kids fly. Because you can safely fly some of these drones very quickly in a controlled environment and get them excited. So I think from our side, legally, my boss sits here. So I think from our side, we've got a presence in every province. And we're actually busy with the program going to the schools. Because once you get excited about something, we all know people, you've got that one boy in the family that says he doesn't read. The challenge is nobody's introduced him to the material that is interested, because then he will read. And I think that's the sort of approach, is that let's get them that thrill of flying that monster, and we can commit that we can visit some, and maybe a MOU between us and you and the kids and where we go. And I noticed civil aviation looking. He doesn't know where the devil I'm going to go with this now. but I mean, we're willing to work. I know they've done wonderful days that I've attended at the airports where they bring in schools and kids and so on. So we from our side, we're willing to go into that partnerships, because if we don't grow it, the grey is on the roof, ne? And I still, civil aviation wants me for a medical every year. At least I pass for now. Yeah, but let's do that.
Yeah, I'd also just like to say that depending on how many people you've got in the rural areas, maybe it's something to think about, that we can get a couple of people in aviation education to go to those different rural areas and give that kind of a day, the different opportunities, etc., etc. I mean, I'll give you an example. When I do sustainable tourism implementation workshops, I show a picture of a hotel room, and I say to my audience, I say, how many jobs are there? And they go, housekeeper. And it's absolutely not true. You've got an upholsterer, an electrician, a plumber, a this, a that. There's 22 jobs that actually create a room. So I think it's on us to actually educate and show the different opportunities that there are available in aviation and the surrounding jobs.
Yeah, thank you, Prof, for the 5 minutes. I'm joking, I'll only take one. I think and now I can talk on behalf of the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development as one of the senior execs. Rural development, obviously, there's a strategy for it, right? And I think one of the things that we have to remember is that the economy is in the small towns. It's really hard to turn. So you need to find your key catalytic projects, and you will know the Beaufort West story with the aerodrome. Also, same. There wasn't a lease agreement, though. The person purchased the airport. And once you purchase the airport as a private party, it becomes very difficult for the state to invest capital into that private property. There are other priorities in government that also need to be dealt with. Education, sanitation, water, running the municipality. So Fani said it maybe lightheartedly. The next program that we're doing is in Beaufort West. I've confirmed. We will, Beaufort West, Victoria West. And we'll do a day, and we're inviting civil aviation to come along. And we will bring the municipality, and we will then make it a 2-day event where we discuss the rural issues around the airport, and then we will do a day for the children, the youth, to learn about aviation from the lowest level, ground level up, and we would invite any other parties. The other thing is we've had experiences as the department building rural airfields. Go and Google. This is not a proud moment, by the way. Go and Google the Somerset East airfield, right? We were convinced by business plans from the private sector that they were going to do a flying school, that they were going to put up an industrial area, that the municipality was going to, in partnership and the district, run the airfield. What happened? The animals graze on the airfield. It's a state-of-the-art airfield. So it's all about rethinking, and I'm willing to take the rural airfields back down there, and let's see how we can put it to work again. And I think there's many places like this, but we need public-private sector partnerships and very clear deliverables on what went wrong. They were going to build an aircraft down there. Wits had some experimental aircraft that they were going to build there and put together. And we bought into it as government. And when the proverbial, what's the word? Pawpaw hits the fan. When that pawpaw hits the fan, it comes back to government and says, but we gave it over to a municipality to run. And I think the one thing that we need to know is local government is an autonomous sphere of government. And they run their own business. And we cannot prescribe as national to them. However, we will bring the necessary people to the table and look at all the issues and see if we can assist as a start looking at aviation in rural spaces and opportunities for young people. And then finally, we'd like to sign an MOU with UNISA. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would just add that when you go down to that rural aerodrome, Flying Jurist will be there, and so will UNISA. And as far as the building of the aircraft is concerned, if the VC is watching right now, we want to ask for money to build an experimental aircraft as UNISA in that particular facility. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I think this concludes this particular panel, and without wasting time, I'd like to jump on to the next panel. Dumi Katisi, please join me on stage. Inati Jonasa, please join me on stage. Masintle Masiane, please join me on stage. We have one missing colleague, Sipho Mangezi. He's not with us today. He was supposed to be here. He sends his apologies. He's held up in Malawi doing some serious work in that particular space. Ladies and gentlemen, with me now are 3 aviators. Jumi Katisi is a commercial pilot and a flight instructor, grade 3. Also a board Say again? She's a med evac pilot. In other words, if you faint now, she can start her aircraft and fly you to the hospital. But don't faint. This is not the space to faint. Thank you very much. And she joins us today. She's also on the board of the Aviation Development Africa, an organization that does a lot of work to promote aviation, especially for the African child, especially for the girl child. And we have Inati Jonase, qualified cabin crew and student pilot, who also works now and again under Flying Jurist Media. We also have Ms. Masintle Masiane, a student pilot. She's a mentor, a mentee, and a member of the 99s, the Africa section. I will begin my talk with them. Let's start with you, Madam Katisi. Your own personal journey into the cockpit. It's an inspiring story. I've seen it online, I've read about it. Tell us more about it.
Okay, I guess I'll use this.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just not to dwell too much on it. I've told it too many times. But my own personal journey into the cockpit has been a very interesting one. I'm originally from Soweto, Pimville. I'm currently flying in Cape Town at the moment. It's not an easy journey, as you can imagine, coming out the townships and heading to the cockpit. It's expensive to fly, number one. And you are stuck with a family that doesn't understand aviation at all. So you coming up to them and telling them you want to be a pilot, it's a shock to them. On top of that, the fees are high. Apart from the fees, you're the first one in your family to fly. And it's a whole new challenge. If you've got challenges that come from flight school, things that you don't understand, there's no one that you can go to and ask how you can tackle things. Finding a role model is very, very important in this industry. It will really, really help you. So it's one thing that actually helped me. And yeah, to be where I am today, I'd say a lot of people are involved. I'm a product of a lot of companies. I did my training here for my commercial license at Wonderboom Airport. When I left for Cape Town, it was an opportunity presented by ExecuJet. I fly for Red Cross at the moment. So yeah.
Thank you, Tumi. Perhaps let me ask you, Mr. Jonashe, you have aspired to be a pilot. You are still on that journey. What would you say were the most significant challenges entering the industry?
For me, I would say it was lack of education from where I'm from. I didn't really know anybody who was around aircraft or who was a pilot, so most of what I knew was from shows like Air Crash Investigation or even going to the airport. And also funds, it's not the cheapest of careers to go into, hence now I haven't started my training yet.
Okay. You then took a decision to study another field within aviation. Why?
Well, I went and I got my cabin crew license, and it wasn't really a career that I wanted to go into at that time. But I thought to myself, having a foot in the door in aviation could help me to be able to grow in the industry. And now I am a certified cabin crew license holder.
Ms. Masiane, your journey to the cockpit, what would you say was the most challenging obstacle?
Thank you, Prof. So with me, the most challenging obstacles, I think I'll just mention three because they've just covered the finance part of it. So it's getting the right school that is accredited by the CAA. That was quite challenging. It needed for me to get mentors and also interact with individuals for me to be guided to the right school. And recently I just moved to Richards Bay. I actually need to drive to Durban to actually do my flying there, which is quite a challenge because there are no schools in Richards Bay. And the other one is ways of studying. You know, I'm sure the aviators can tell that they all recommend different softwares, you know. So I think as an individual, it's for you to get the one that's most suitable for you. And with me being a part-time student, I think also it helps me structuring my studies very well. And last is getting a mentor for guidance, you know, how you go about studying, how you go about tackling those questions as well. And also, like I said, getting the right schools that are accredited.
Okay. Then the organization that you're part of, tell me more about it and how does it benefit you?
Okay, so I am part of the 99s. That's the international organization for women pilots. It was founded in 1929. Aviators would know, I think Amelia Earhart is the founder. And she was the first woman who did the transatlantic. And unfortunately, while trying to do the world around, the aircraft disappeared in the Atlantic. So the 99s have got scholarships as well that are available to the members. And recently, the 99s have extended membership to the students like us. So the way it has benefited me is I previously I was in accounting and then moved to HR, now in psychology, now in aviation. So I actually have a chance to share with them my skills. They also share with me their skills. You know, it's one thing to study and one thing to hear first-hand incidents that has happened from fellow aviators. So it has been very helpful for me. And also we do have our virtual catch-ups. I think it's easy to get hold of the aviators there, you know, exchanging numbers, always available in emails. And also studying alone as a part-time student, it's quite challenging. So they are available to unpack those questions that I need guidance on. And I'm also able to advise them, you know, from the HR space. I'm sure we are all affected by the two-pot system. So, you know, just giving them advice there and there. So that's how it has benefited me.
All right. Coming back to you, Dumi, the organization that you co-founded, unpack that for us and what its impact is in the industry and why you decided to start that.
Why I decided to start it. So the organization is Aviation Development in Africa. Our motto that we live with, it's flying with a purpose. So why I started it is because before I got into flying, it was really hard to get information on where can I go train, how do I go about it, just the relevant information needed to start. So I used to go on social media. Facebook was a thing then. I would inbox a lot of airline pilots, just asking them on how do I get to where you
Before
are.
you continue, did they inbox back?
That's where I'm getting to.
Okay.
So I would send them messages on like, how do I get to where you are right now? And hardly ever. They just read your message and they never respond. And to me, I believe the power of information that changes the world. And I believe if probably one of them got back to me, then I could have probably knew what I knew. And I probably would have saved all my tax money towards my licenses by then. But that's what made me start the aviation development in Africa. Because there are a lot of kids out there that need information, but they don't know where to go about it. So kids in the rural areas, kids in the townships, they're also not exposed to aviation. So they've never seen a plane, they've never been to an airport, they've never seen a pilot. So when you come up to those kids, you actually give them hope that they can become anything they want to be. Something apart from what you see every day. Because most kids in the rural areas and the township, they always tell you they want to be a doctor, a policeman, a nurse, because that's what they see around them. So when you come in, it gives them hope that actually I can dream beyond my background. And what we do, we have a booklet that we actually formed with the organization. This booklet has like a lot of aviation careers in it. And it also goes into specifics into what do they need in school, what subjects are needed, where they can get bursaries, how they can get a hold of us, because we also mentor these kids. So one thing that we notice when we do go to kids in the township and rural areas, if you speak to them and present on the board and walk away, next week they probably forgot what you said. So by giving them this, it's a token that they have forever. So even if I might not be interested, but ADA came to our school, and then I have a little sister that's coming up, and one day they'd be like, I want to be a pilot. You can hand them this book, it can change.
Wonderful. Mr. Jonasha, having graduated for your cabin crew qualification, are you practicing as cabin crew now?
Currently I'm not. I'm studying, I'm getting my bachelor in IT, knowing how turbulent the aviation industry is in South Africa. I'd like to have a fallback career to go for. And also, right now, sorry, I have acquired books for PPL and RPC, so I'm still studying that.
Okay, so what has kept you going? Because I see you did your cabin crew, then you're doing this bachelor's degree in technology now. What's keeping the dream alive?
I've joined the EAA Young Aviators. They tend to have monthly talks, and I've enjoyed attending those because you get to interact with other aviators, you get to hear their stories. I've also joined Ms. Katisi's AVA to help and volunteer when I can, and also hearing the stories from them has kept me going.
All right, Ms. Masiane, I notice your organization, the 99s, focuses on women and girls. Care to explain why that particular focus?
Okay, so the industry is quite male-dominated for now. So this is just for the 99s to encourage women in aviation, you know, not just only becoming pilots. I know I, for myself, I want to be an aviation psychologist one day. Also to let them know that, you know, like the air traffic controllers, technicians. I actually found something that's very interesting from the Aero president while there was the Global Aviation Gender Summit, that to close the gap in terms of gender equality, it might take 131 years. So you can just imagine what it is. I think it was quite an interesting conversation there.
Yeah.
So there is actually a call to action to encourage more women to join the aviation space and also break the stereotype and also the bias, you know. Hence the awareness for the action and also promoting women in aviation from the 99s.
Okay. No, thanks. Why you mentioned that one of your aspirations to become an aviation psychologist, Dr. Masichaba will confirm for you, but we might have one of the most brilliant programs at UNISA in that space, but she will confirm. Now, to the young pilot about to embark on, or has just embarked on this journey, what would you advise?
So it's proper planning, you know, in terms of finances and how you will study. And also getting guidance because, you know, exams do expire. Mm-hmm. And also making sure that they get the right mentors. But above all, it's about your own motivating yourself that you can do it. Because remember, it is your own project. It's not anyone else's project. Like Dumi said, sometimes people won't understand your dream, you know, but it's up to yourself to make it happen. And also making sure that you really achieve that goal that you have set for yourself. So that is very important. And also planning in terms of finances as well. I have met a couple of mentors that has advised me that, you know what, if you're still trying to figure out your finances, start with the exams, you know. By the time you finish exams, then you can actually figure out how you can fly, because flying is quite expensive.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sitting here with mentees. These are products of mentorship. They are also mentors in their own right. Let's open the floor for a round of questions if there are. Yes, there's one hand. Is there a second one? Okay, just one hand. Okay, go ahead. Microphone, please.
Okay, my question is to ADA and also Inati and the Miss there over there. So as a student pilot myself, as Dumi said, ADA is to bring aviation awareness to students in rural areas and townships. So knowing that aviation is getting more expensive as time goes by, and knowing that we do not have, we do not have enough scholarships, sponsorships, and bursaries available to sponsor students. If there is, like CAA and TITA, they don't sponsor a lot of students like NSFAS sponsors varsity students. We only have like, it can only accommodate maybe 10 students. Would you be able to then encourage the students who are maybe starting high school and say that, you know what, because of this is the problem that we face in aviation, maybe start saving up that little 500 rand, 100 rand from today until maybe you finish matric, because sometimes that is the only way that you can go about it. Like myself, I'm struggling to get bursaries and stuff. So then the only way I can go about it is to just save for myself or ask for sponsorships or donations now and then. So my question is, would you be able to tell students that this is how expensive it is and it's going to get more expensive, but do not be demotivated. Just maybe start saving what you can, and then after varsity, you can then see what you have and then apply for these bursaries. Yeah.
Okay, from 8 years side of things, trust me, it's very near impossible to try get a child in the rural areas that has nothing. most kids that we go to are really struggling. Some don't even have school shoes. So to even ask that kid to save even a mere £5, you're asking them for a lot, you know. But the one thing that we always encourage these kids, so a lot of rural areas actually, when you go to the premiers, the ministers, they do have funding for kids within that specific area. So for kids, I think there's a number of kids we spoke to in KZN that are flying today. We met those schools, those kids at an expo, and we told them about approaching the municipality offices, and which they did. I think a whole bunch of them got funded from KZN. So whichever province that we go to, we do like tell the kids about, it's not only CAA, it's not only TITA. Unfortunately, you do need to knock on doors. And unfortunately, government, they are not doing enough, I believe, from the flying side of things. And I strongly believe that there's going to be a big gap where a lot of pilots are needed, but flight school is too expensive and no one can afford it. And this is, I think, now, even before, I think the previous years, government should have like a school standing where they send their own students and train them for this. Because at the rates that we're going and the rates are going up, our economy, no one can afford anything now. So if you look at pilot training, you're going to spend R1 million. No one has that. So it's up to government to act now. If not, we're going to have a big crisis when it comes to getting people that are qualified to fly the planes. Because even our captains now are old. They need to retire at some point. And then you're going to try get everyone that's training now to fill in the gap. But what's going to happen now when we get recruited by Qatar, Emirates, or wherever? Who's going to fly the flag? So it's something that government needs to look at. As much as private companies can do so much. They can only do so much. But I believe as government, I mean, people get taxed a lot in this country, number one. So they should be looking at a place where they can build a school. 43, for instance, build something like that. Keep corruption away. I think that's the biggest thing. Keep corruption away. There are a lot of kids. It doesn't have to only look at piloting, the mechanics, engineers. Build a world-class facility for South Africans and get those kids there, because people are inspired, people are motivated, people want to achieve things in aviation, but you're held back by. So it's a big thing, but I think government needs to take a role.
Okay, so from me, I'm actually in the HR space, so I'm more on self-development. So look, Prof is Prof and also flying at the same time. I'm also in the HR space and also flying at the same time. If you have to start somewhere in order for you to get income, do that. At the end, you will be having diverse skills. You'll be an accountant and you'll be having your PPL. So just start somewhere and get something and still continue with your dream, as long as you don't give up on it. And it doesn't have to start a profession after you get your PPL, because you can never know where you might end up. During COVID, that's when we saw how having diverse skills actually helps. You know, if you are a pilot, then you can get part-time job maybe in an accounting sector. So try and make sure that you get as many diverse skills as you can, because you never know what would happen. Also, I think she mentioned something that's very important. You know, if then you get sick, and then we deal with a lot of ill health cases where I work, where you find that employees are no longer able to do their work and with that restrictions, and we cannot be able to accommodate them, but the only way is to let them go. You know, if you have diverse skills, you can start something else. You know, you're actually not losing anything.
And I think I'm a product of what they're saying. I could have chosen to just sit and try to find the funds for pilot training, but instead I chose to first get a university degree. Yes, it's not something I would have loved to work at, being an office job, but if it's going to get me at the end result of being a pilot, then I think it's worth going for. So don't always have that carrot in front of you. Look at other opportunities that you can go for and start there. It might take you long, yes, but what matters is you're going to get there at the end of the day.
Thank you so much. One last, make it a quick one, and then we can.
I'll be very quick. Thank you very much, Professor Dube. Just to do Aviation Development Africa, I just want to find out, you're speaking of flying the flag, do you operate in Lesotho or only in South Africa? The reason is that I've recently moved to Lesotho, so I'm busy developing Lesotho. The beauty of it is that when you start a private school, you can come up with your own curriculum. So I'm busy building primary schools in Lesotho, so I'm including aviation, hence I came here. And secondly is to find out that how do you go about operating so that you can get you to Lesotho to encourage the children, because in the deep rural area. Thank you very much.
Okay, from aviation development in Africa, it speaks for itself. We want to go to Africa, the whole of Africa. So we're not only limited to South Africa. So at the moment, I think we've been to every province in South Africa. And we work with a government entity. So all we need from you is an official invite. Just tell us what school you want us to come to. We'll make it happen. We'll come there and inspire the kids there. So that's all that's required from you. You don't have to pay anything or anything like that. So we work with SASTA. So SASTA, they organize like everything from my side. We tell them that there's a school in Lesotho, they've got so-and-so, there's a couple of students that we need to see there. And having an official invite from a letter from the school, it goes a long way. We will activate everything on our side. We'll come there with our booklets. Unfortunately, we can't come with a plane as yet. But yeah, we'll bring the necessary. We'll bring a lot of inspiration from the kids. And fortunately from us, it's not just pilots. We have a whole lot of other sectors in aviation. So we'll come with different people to inspire different kids.
Thank you. So many collaborations are going to come out of this engagement. When we started it, I didn't think we'll go that far, but that's where we're at. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the close of this Q&A session and to the close of the General Aviation Indaba. We thank every one of us who has come here today. We thank our partners, Aero South Africa. We thank our other partners, the African Beer Growth Network. We thank the company, the Flying Jurist, and everyone who put a hand for this to be a success. For our speakers, we have a token of appreciation, and I would like our camera people to be on standby to take photos when we hand over to our speakers the little token of appreciation that we have prepared for them as the University of the Land and as the Flying Jurist and with all our other partners. We hope this will become a bigger event next year. Please popularize it. Market it when it comes up next year, and I'm going to be putting pressure on my colleagues for the event that they mentioned, and I'm going to be putting pressure on my boss, our number one, the Vice Chancellor. There's something good that can happen in that space. UNISA is the University of the Land. We need to invest in that particular project. We need to have an experimental aircraft built from scratch to finish and flown by myself. Okay, I'm not a test pilot. I'm not a test pilot. I can't. Once the test pilot clears it, I can then play around with it. Yes. But let us all be in touch. Let's give a round of applause for all our speakers. So on behalf of the Vice Chancellor of the University of South Africa, Professor Puleng Kabula, on behalf of the College Management at the College of Law, Professor Budeli and Professor Kole, on behalf of the leadership of the university, including Dr. Masechaba sitting right here, the Dean of the College of Economics and Management Sciences, I can't say on behalf of myself, so I'll skip myself. Yes, it will sound like I'm trying to boast, but on behalf of myself, thank you for coming through, and thank you for staying the duration of this particular engagement. We will be now issuing gifts to our speakers and our colleagues from Aero South Africa. Where are they? If they are around, please, if someone can call Zinhle, let her know. We're trying to give them some gifts. And over here is some form of catering that the university has put together, because we know you've been sitting here since 1:30. You're probably famished right now. Please go around after we finish, grab something to eat there. Thank you very much.
so much.